The real reason life is brutally unfair for men.
We now have this digital world that we can live our lives in as a distraction from the real world. And there's now more confusion than ever over what it is to be a man and the role of a man in a, you know, and then we look at the stats around suicidality. And I think in Europe,
guys
the
kill
biggest
themselves
killer
all the
of
time.
men under the age of 45 is themselves currently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the shifting idea of what it is to be a man having an impact on people's sense of self and their purpose?
100%. So there's a crisis that's going on in
It's a
men.
huge identity crisis. Massive.
And people think that this is new, but I don't think it's new. It's always been there. So if you look at, like, you know, even 50, 60 years ago, 80% of suicides are still going to be men. So historically, men have been killing themselves for like 100 years, and no one's been.
Well, I mean, what's that seppuku? The Japanese swordsman thing? Yeah, plenty of times. Like, absolutely.
Paying attention. Just noticing now because the problem seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, it is.
So there's a couple of things that are really interesting to understand. So one is that if we look at what technology is doing to our brains, the first thing that it's doing is it is externalizing our attention.
No.
So if you look back, like, let's say 1,000 years ago, as human beings, we spent a lot more time with ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's one thing is people, like, I've noticed this myself, is that this is going to sound really bad, but I'm going to just say it. Every time I get to a stoplight or a stop sign I have to wait, I will sometimes pick up my phone and I will look at my phone while I'm driving. How many of you guys do that? Be honest. I do it all the time. I do it constantly. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm basically, all right, carefully. I have not run over anybody that I'm aware of. All girls are whores now. You had a boyfriend that, you know, was abusive. I'd rather live with a bear, right? This is your own personal trauma that now you're putting on the whole world. I think that, like, there's a lot of examples of that. So instead of working through it privately, they do this instead.
And I would listen to a podcast while I'm, like, doing my exercise or whatever. Yeah. And now, since I don't have any internal source of information, I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the outside world. And this is when men get truly fucked.
Yep.
Because what it means to be a man, we are getting all kinds of mixed signals. So on the one hand, it means being physically...
It's also another big problem, too, is that, and I don't know if he's going to talk about this or not, is that I think that self-help and information on the internet and people looking for any sort of advice on the internet is incredibly toxic, because the most popular people in a lot of cases tell you that your fault is somebody else's. It's the Jews, it's women, it's the patriarchy, it's rape culture, it's fucking white supremacy. It's never you. And that's the problem, is like, so much of the, and this is, I've said this before, right? So much of these things are constantly about why you're doing people basically are looking for someone to tell them that you're doing your best whenever you're sitting at home jerking off to animals that aren't real on DeviantArt and playing Marvel Rivals for 12 hours a day. And if you don't tell them that that's the right option and you're doing the best you can, they're going to look for somebody else that will. It's the problem. Well, those are especially the ones that aren't allowed to complain, because they're the ones that have access to the resources and all this, so you especially don't want to hear them complaining.
Impact is the same. I need this, I need to make this money and things like that. Where did you learn that you should do all that? You learned all that from the outside.
The internet.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram, right? So we get fed all of these ideas, because if you look at all these...
you have to live your life a certain way. You have to be a certain person. You have to have these ideas. You have to, achieve these things and all of that. It's all bullshit. You don't need to do any of that. You do whatever the fuck you want.
Influencers, what are they doing? They're never crying. They're smiling. Some of them will even pay very attractive women to take pictures with them.
Well, some of them are crying, but they're crying and uploading it for ulterior motives, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of them are genuinely suffering too. But then it's also like, I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. So one thing is, like, people say that men we don't allow men to be emotional nowadays, but people say, oh, men are allowed to cry. So this is something that I experienced even in my marriage, where
bro, that's like a Venus flytrap. Men are allowed to cry. People, you don't do it. Don't do it. Remember whenever Kyle Rittenhouse cried in, like, his court date, and then people used that as a meme for, like, years? No, don't do it. You don't want to do it publicly. Like, honestly, like, I try not to cry in front of anybody. Just, in private.
We allow men to cry, but we don't allow men to be angry. But why is it are men no longer allowed to be angry? You just think about it for a second. So anger is just a completely normal emotion, right? But if I'm in a situation where I'm in an argument with my wife and I feel emotion A and I express emotion A and she feels emotion B and she expresses emotion B, these two things should be equal, right? We as both.
No, he's so right. I hope he's going to say what I'm saying. There are so many cases in society where the feminine norm is considered better and more acceptable than the male norm. And I think there's like a over-feminization of society that happens inside of education, that happens inside of, I think, popular culture. And I think that it also happens inside of companies too. And basically, whenever it comes down to which emotion is correct, is it the man's emotion or the woman's emotion? The typically male emotions are seen as wrong, and the typically female emotions are seen as acceptable. It's a huge problem.
Human beings get to express what we feel. Now, in the case of me expressing anger and her expressing sadness, she's crying and I'm yelling. Suddenly, I become a villain.
That's right.
It's so interesting.
Yep.
I saw a viral tweet yesterday. It was someone Googling, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? And then my husband is yelling at me, what should I do?
Yeah, and the wife, it's like, call the police. It's like, this person's terrible. And then the husband is like, what did you do wrong? Yeah.
Googled, my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? Domestic violence helpline comes up as like a Google pop-up.
Oh!
When you Google, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? Nothing comes up.
Damn. Yeah.
Because obviously, as you said, in the case of villainization, I know that most domestic violence comes from men. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that we see the emotion, we interpret the emotions entirely differently.
Well, just because a lot of domestic violence and especially like death, right, is going to come from men because men are bigger and stronger, that doesn't mean that it doesn't also happen to men. That's the problem, is that just because something is statistically less common doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Like, let's say it's 80-20. That means it happens 20% of the time. That's an insanely huge number. Men don't report it as much? Yeah, they don't. Well, because of, remember that ratchet fucking hoe, Nina? Where she said, oh, well, are you really being a man if you actually are complaining about being sexually assaulted? That's the type of toxic shit that is actually super bad. And I think we should just get rid of that completely. Should be embarrassed. Yeah, exactly. Needs a dude. I don't know. Like, look, I don't want to get in. Looks like a girl to me, but I have no idea.
Because of that.
Absolutely, right? So we as a society will say like, oh, men need to be in touch with their emotions, but not anger. And then this is what really screws men, because as men, we are socialized and conditioned to only feel anger. This is the only emotion you are allowed to feel as a man growing up. And this is the one emotion that gets demonized when you're older. Yeah. So I'll give you a simple example. So like I used to get bullied a lot, right? So when I get bullied in school, like what am I supposed to do, Stephen?
In school? Well, it depends.
Stab them.
If you can fight back.
Absolutely, right? It's fighting back.
That's right.
Like you didn't say talk to the teacher.
That's what my dad told me to do. No, in 8th grade, like there would be a kid try and put his hand in my pocket, and like I told my dad about it. He's like, just stab him. And I'm like, okay. And I just got a fork and I stabbed it right in him. I broke it off in his skin. Never did that shit again. I was in 8th grade.
You didn't say ask for help. You didn't say cry about it, because if I cry about it, what's going to happen, Stephen?
That's it.
You're going to get bullied more.
Absolutely. So we turn every emotion. So men experience anger as something called an umbrella emotion. We literally suppress and are conditioned to suppress all other emotions except for anger. And then if you talk to men about their experience of life, anger is always the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Yeah. Someone breaks up with you. How do you feel about it? Do you feel ashamed? No, that's not what we say. I feel pissed off. How could she do this to me? And then
I generally actually don't get mad. Like it's rare for me to get angry. It happens, but like I try to avoid it as much as possible, because I've felt like I look back in my life and I say, when was the last time I made a good decision when I was mad? I remember. Never. I've never made a good decision when I was mad.
We vent that anger on the internet, and then this turns into misogyny, right? And then we get demonized for it. And it's not that there isn't, we should be harshly judged if we act on
But why
those.
is it that women can go on the internet and talk all this shit on men, see how horrible men are, how bad men are, but if men criticize toxic feminine behavior, we're seen as we hate women and all this bullshit? That's the reason why. That's the problem isn't that you can't do it. The problem is there's a double standard.
Kinds of emotions. I'm not saying that that's the case.
Yep.
But what we also need to consider is that the men who are saying these kinds of toxic things are saying that for a reason. This is because of their upbringing. This is because of the world that they lived in, right? So we're conditioned to only experience anger. Even sadness gets turned into anger. Shame gets turned into anger. Fear gets turned into anger, right? So if I'm afraid of something happening, what do I need? I need to man up, get angry, right? Like, let's go, son, let's go. This is the emotion that we tap into to overcome fear. So we don't feel any of those other emotions, and we're left only feeling anger.
At the very heart of aggression, I heard someone say to me once that at the very heart of aggression is some kind of insecurity. But for men, when they encounter that insecurity, they only know how to sort of manifest it as aggression.
So I wouldn't agree with the first thing, that at the heart of all anger is insecurity, but I would absolutely agree with the second thing, that the only way we know how to respond is with anger. Because
here's the exact quote, just found it. The source of aggression is insecurity. As we are unconsciously aware that our position in life is never secure, people feel increasingly insecure and helpless, so they will be increasingly aggressive and confrontational at a personal and a social level.
So let's tunnel down into that for a second. Okay, so I think that that is true on some level, but also I would disagree. So the first thing is that we have parts.
I don't think it's insecurity. I think it's scarcity, and scarcity drives insecurity. Scarcity is generally what I think is the root of almost all problems that people have, is some form of scarcity, and understanding what that form is will solve their problem. I mean, obviously there's no 100%, but that's it.
Of our brain, even animals feel anger. But I think that, like, when two dogs are fighting over territory, I don't think that that's born of some kind of identity of insecurity, right? So if we really look at, like, the evolutionary purpose of anger, this is my opinion, is that anger is the emotion that we feel to protect our territory. It's a protective emotion. So if I slap you across the face, what's the first thing that you're going to feel? It's going to be anger. Yeah. So if I insult you, you're going to feel angry. It's fascinating the way that it works. So anger causes our thoughts to be faster. Anger causes our peripheral vision to collapse to 30 degrees. So I only see what's in front of me.
This is what happened. This is the reason why I can't play competitive games, is because I get mad and then I play like shit. That's exactly right. That's 100% what happens. And I know it about myself. That's the worst thing, is I know that about myself. I know I'm crashing out while I'm crashing out.
And it also makes me less sensitive to pain. So, like, my nociceptors will actually, like, start to be suppressed when I feel angry, right? So if I get into a fight, I'm going to feel it tomorrow, but, like, while I'm getting hit, I'm not going to feel
adrenaline.
So I don't think it's born of all insecurity. I think anger is simply an evolutionary response. It's something that we experience to protect ourselves. That's why we feel angry, right? So if I attack baby bear, mama bear is going to come out angry. So it's really a protective emotion. Now, I agree with the second part of the statement 100%, that when we feel insecure, especially as men, the only way we are taught to deal with our problems is through anger, right? So if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling ashamed of myself, if someone's bullying me, what do? I put them in their place, right? I don't try to make peace. I don't complain to someone because no one's going to take me seriously, right? I have to stand up for myself.
Exactly. And, like, anybody that cries about it or acts like a victim, like, people hate them and, like, they make fun of them, meme on them, and all kinds of shit like that. Absolutely. Totally true.
We've got the first point there about how we remedy this challenge, which is about self-expression, more self-expression. That's what I heard.
Not self-expression, introspection.
Introspection, getting to know ourselves.
Right. So it's very simple. So if you look at your idea of what it means to be a man, what percentage of that idea comes outside of you? And what percentage of that idea comes from within you?
About 90% comes from outside of me.
And that's why 90%.
I never even thought about what it means to be anything, bro. I just went and I did whatever the fuck I want whenever I was a kid. That was the way I looked at it. Like, I never really, this might be weird, but, like, I never really looked for a role model. I never really looked for anybody to, like, base what I would do off of. I just pretty much grew up and I just did whatever the fuck I wanted, and I didn't care about what anybody else thought for any reason. Like, even if like my parents were really disappointed or mad at me, it would not even register to me. It would just be like, okay, well, who cares what you think? This is just me. Like, I'm gonna do what I want. That was me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, look up to yourself. Yeah, so you're spoiled? Really? I mean, I wouldn't say spoiled. It's just that I never considered other people's approval as valid or important. Because in a lot of cases, I never considered a lot of other people valid or important. The only person that mattered was me.
People
That's the
we're
truth.
90% fucked.
Just be honest.
Right? So, and if you look, and I'm sure you know this, and you've probably done this too, if you look at where is the goodness in your life, where does it come from, Stephen? It doesn't come from what other people have told you. They may have told you something, but then you looked within yourself and then you found that to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goodness in you, the
Most
motivation,
humble
the
streamer?
really good motivation in you, not chasing things, but the duty that you have, everything that you really strive for, all that good stuff comes from inside you. And the problem is that we live in a world that pulls our attention away from ourselves.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So
Pulled attention. I think also like people they never really stop to think about how they feel, and they never really stop to think. People constantly are looking for like another type of stimulation rather than trying to use their own mind to have any sort of calmness at all. And like, I think that's really what it is for a lot of people. And that's what it's been for me in a lot of cases too, also, is that like if I can just lay down and just relax and just do nothing, I can kind of like recenter my brain. And I think that like after I do a stream, for example, it can be tiresome to do a stream. I know, people are, oh, streaming is easy. Sure, yeah, it is. But like, imagine talking nonstop for 5 hours with like 2 30-second breaks, and you're constantly reading things. Like, there's a lot of mental energy that goes into that, right? And it's like there's never even like 2 seconds that you can like lose focus. So you have a lot of like, it's not physically taxing in a way, but like there's a mental like tax that has. And so like whenever I stop and you decompress, it can feel very, very good to do that.
as a general rule, I don't comment on people that I don't speak to. So tell me the features of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of internet masculine influencers who have
internet dads. That's really what it is. It's just, internet dads.
Bugattis and lots of women and sports cars, and there's many of them. And they seem to be resonant for some kind of reason. That are kind of saying that the way to be a man is to have loads of money, lots of women, these kind of cars, physical strength, and there's just this huge sort of generation of young, typically men, that are now disciples of that religion.
Yeah. So I think if you dislike that toxic masculinity, what we need to understand is it's the people who hate that toxic masculinity that are driving these people towards it. So I know this is kind of crazy. So what's happened is this has grown, right? And as it's grown, what have we done? We've demonized these people. We've said these people are bad. And as we demonize them, what's happened? They've grown stronger. So this is something that's very important to understand. If you are a man and you say, I am suffering today, what is the response that you're going to get?
Shut up.
Shut the fuck up, pussy ass bitch. That's the way it is. It's going to get worse.
Absolutely.
Not in those exact words, but that's whatever the words are, that's what they mean.
Now, I want us to be very, very careful, right? So if you are listening to Stephen say people tell you to shut up, and your first thought as a listener is, no, that's not true, that's the problem. So if people agree with you, they understand what you're saying. But if they disagree with you, that's the problem. We literally have a man who is telling us right now that your experiences when I say I'm suffering, people tell you to shut up. And then
they invalidate the way that you feel. This is a huge problem on the internet where people aren't allowed to feel certain ways. And any sort of emotion that a person's going to have in one direction is categorized as problematic or bad in one way or another.
We're going to be judging you for saying that.
They do. It's just the way it is.
About pain. Women who are complaining about pain because they have an internal bleed within the wall of their uterus that cannot get detected. And they're saying, I'm hurting, and we ignore this person's pain. And that's when things go bad. So for years and years and years, we have ignored the struggles of men. And there's one group on the planet who accepts them with open arms. And the more that we demonize them, so when someone starts believing in this toxic masculinity, what is the response?
This is also this is like a precursor of why I think a lot of men are becoming right-wing. This is why I think you're having such a massive distinction between like young men and young women becoming more right-wing. And the reason why is very simply because at least Nick Fuentes agrees with you that things are against you, right? He listens. He doesn't just call you a loser, right? Like that's basically it. And that's why a lot of young guys are turning towards those types of role models, those types of characters. Yeah, right-wing makes more sense now. Yeah, exactly.
Do people ever ask, like, help me understand what your life is like? Like, what do you like about this person? Because everyone's going to them for a reason, but we never bother to ask, why are you listening to this person? What does this mean to you? We see these posts all the time in our community. My boyfriend is getting into this stuff. My son is getting this stuff. How do I stop it? Hold on a second. Don't try to stop it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the problem, that you never even considered why he's getting into it. You never even considered his feelings. Maybe that's the reason why he's getting into it in the first place.
Understand it first. Because everyone's trying to stop it, and no one is bothering to listen to what the experience of these men are.
Karens.
And that's why it's getting worse
and
worse and worse as we try to stop it.
So if I'm the mother of a son who is watching a lot of these sort of toxic male influences online, what would be a better approach versus just banning the computer and telling them that that's toxic and not to look at it?
Help me understand what you like about this.
Yeah.
What is it like to be a man in today's day and age? How do you feel about yourself? How does it feel knowing that?
And the reason why parents don't want to do this is because this takes time, thoughtfulness, and intelligence. It's a lot easier than just say, oh, you're not using that computer anymore. You're going to look up all more of that crazy Hitler stuff. That's it.
That 70 to 80% of women want you to make more money than them, and yet 60% of people who graduate from college are women. So men are living in a world today where there are impossible expectations to meet. And so, like, what is it like to be someone who fundamentally has no chance at success? Right? These are
This is the reason why a lot of guys feel this way, is they feel like they don't really have the opportunities. And also, I think that there's like definitely, I think dating apps really create this mentality where it is like the top 10% of guys are seen as the ones that are able to hook up with all of these girls and having access to, having a pretty girlfriend or something like that. And I think that's also very, very tremendously negatively affected, like, I guess, like the way that men see the world. That's been really, really problematic.
Things that you need to
more like 0.1%. I mean, like maybe I don't know. Like I've never had a dating app before in my life, to be honest with you. I haven't. So I don't know what it's like, but from everything that I hear, it's horrible. And also, like, the women's experience is also really bad too, but it's just a different set of problems. Instead of getting no matches, you get 40 matches of 40-year-old men whenever you're 19.
To these people.
And they're fat.
Give them an alternate place to go where they can be heard and helped, supported and understood. See, anytime we make a judgment, our mind already has a conclusion. There's nothing left to learn anytime we're judgmental. So what do we do to all these people who are toxic men? We even create the word toxic. We literally label them as bad in some way. And I'm not saying that these are people who are actual pedophiles, actual rapists.
Yeah.
Right? Not just talking about it. Maybe the people on social media are too. I don't know. And so it's really interesting the way that our mind automatically judges things. And so if we really want to fix this problem, and I think we need to fix this problem, it's just my take. I mean, I'm not I'm a big fan of like compassion and trying to support other human beings. I'm not saying that that's always the right answer. I think sometimes you may need things like war or violence or whatever.
Sure.
There may be causes for it. But generally speaking, I think that like demonizing these people isn't working.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.
Yep. There's a video right there. Give me a second. I'll get to that.
We now have this digital world.
Yeah, fucking awesome video. Yeah, it was a great video. Like, I really, really thought that was good. And I figured like I would watch that because I thought it would just, it would be a good video. Like, that's just it. And I've always loved Dr. K, like for years, and, always supported them. And I think that the interviewer, this guy, he did a great job of just asking good questions and then just shutting the fuck up, right? Like, this is a great interview, and I want to talk about like my kind of own opinions about this too, because I think that it's a pretty popular topic, right? It definitely is. Yeah, it's more human. Yeah, absolutely, right? Spot on. Yeah, definitely. And there's a video right there. Did you watch the shoe video today? No, it might be tomorrow. I'm not really sure entirely yet, but I'll probably figure out more of it. We need more of this. Yeah, I thought it was a good video, right? You always get orange in the morning, in the evening. Yeah, that's because usually whenever the sun goes down, the sun's going down. It was raining earlier, and I think it's probably cold, etc. And so that's it. And how far do you think men having their own men's right movement as the women's rights movement back whenever it started? I think that men don't really need rights. They need equal treatment. So, like, for example, men need equal treatment in regards to child custody. Men need equal treatment in terms of prison sentencing, things like that. So it's not really necessarily rights, but it's mainly the way that the existing rights are being applied. I think that's mainly the issue, right? In divorce, I mean, maybe, right? Equal rights and treatment. Yeah, definitely. But in Twitch bans, yes, definitely.